bring me the passengers. I want them alive.
Darth Vader only has 37 minutes of screen time in the original Star Wars trilogy, and yet he's one of, if not the most iconic movie characters of all time. Compare this to Kylo Ren, who has 1 hour 2 minutes of screen time across the sequels. That's 25 minutes more, in a trilogy that, adjusted for inflation, earned more money. So why is Darth Vader so iconic, but Kylo Ren isn't? This is the relative Google searches for each character. Darth Vader is consistently higher and on average has 4 times more interest.
Yes, my master.
He has about 49 million more search results than Kylo Ren. It's clear that Darth Vader has much more of a lasting legacy. You can say it's because of better writing and a more interesting design, and he's had about 50 years to marinate in movies that are generally more well liked.
I sense something.
And all of this is probably true, but I think there's something deeper at play here. Because can you name me a truly iconic character from the 2020s? The 2010s had Marvel, the 2000s had Harry Potter, the 90s had Kevin McAllister and Neo, the 80s had Indiana Jones and a bunch of slasher movie villains, and the 70s had Star Wars, where basically everyone is iconic. So what has changed? Are movies just worse now? I don't think that's it. I think there's been a wider shift in how we consume media and storytelling. Things are more temporary now and nothing seems to have much lasting impact. And a good way of understanding this is through the lens of iconic characters. This is how Merriam-Webster defines iconic: of relating to or having the characteristics of an icon. Widely recognised and well established.
Well.
Widely known and acknowledged, especially for distinctive excellence.
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Okay, so this is kinda helpful, but it doesn't really tell us anything we don't know. In truth, there aren't many ways to objectively measure whether or not a character has icon status. You kinda just know it when you see it.
Get away from her, you bitch!
So let's take a look at some characters that are undoubtedly iconic to help us get a better understanding.
I don't really understand it. What do you want this loan for?
I want to build a giant space station that can destroy a planet.
Darth Vader, probably the most iconic movie character of all time.
I am your father.
He's on bed sheets, lunchboxes, a gargoyle at the National Cathedral in Washington DC, The Simpsons, and Family Guy.
I don't know that would be a good investment on our end.
And I'd say one of the main reasons he's so celebrated is the design. Let's break it down. From his introduction, the darkness of his suit stands in contrast to the white ship and white stormtroopers. We know this is a guy who is large and in charge. He means business.
What have you done with those plans?
This is similar to the slew of slasher movie villains from around this time: Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger. The William Shatner mask, hockey mask, and striped jumper. They've all got an image that's hard to forget.
Running in the hallway.
In a different light, we've got Indiana Jones. Sure, the hat and the whip is iconic, but what I think makes this character truly special is Harrison Ford's performance.
And who's gonna come to save you, Junior? I told you! Don't call me Junior.
In reality, there's too many to name, and again, no objective way to measure if a certain character has icon status or not. All of the people I'm showing on screen now are iconic in my opinion, but maybe not yours.
Everybody hear me? Up on the shelf, can you hear me? Great!
But what about modern examples? Surely there's at least a few from this decade.
I am soaking wet right now.
Paul Atreides could be up there. He's got the strong performance, he's in popular and successful films, but has he cut through to mainstream audiences the way Marvel did? Other contenders might be Benoit Blanc, Barbie and Ken, Jake Sully.
Let's get it done.
To help us, and maybe highlight how this decade has failed to produce any undisputed icons, let's take a look at maybe the most objective way to measure a film's popularity.
Uh-oh.
These are the top 10 highest grossing movies worldwide of the 2020s. In at number 1 is Avatar: The Way of Water. It's become a bit of a meme to joke about Avatar's cultural impact, or lack thereof. It's pretty much just these two memes. And despite being an Avatar fan, I do generally admit that for the amount of money they make, it's strange they don't inhabit the zeitgeist as much as you'd expect. The main character is Jake Sully,
Excellent.
but I'm willing to bet most people won't recognise that name. It's hard to say he's iconic. Maybe his design is part of this. He doesn't look all that different from anyone around him, he's just a normal looking blue alien. And despite having 2 movies in the last 2 years, his Google searches never overtook Vader's. Number 2 is Nijar 2. I haven't seen this and I don't think many people in the West have, so not iconic here, but maybe in China? Next up, Spider-Man No Way Home.
You okay?
Oh, my back.
There's no doubt Spider-Man as a character is iconic, but is this specific iteration of Spider-Man iconic?
Oh yeah, no, I got a middle back thing too.
Really?
We've also got 3 animated movies. Maybe it's because I don't know any kids, but it's hard to say Zootropolis is iconic. Maybe you could make a case for Inside Out. Mario is another Spider-Man case, where the character is certainly iconic, but less so this specific incarnation. But do any of them have the legacy of The Incredibles or Toy Story?
We're not aiming for the truck.
Number 6 is Top Gun Maverick. I'd say Tom Cruise is iconic, but not necessarily any individual character of his.
Your line's not long enough. No shit.
Do you guys ever think about dying?
Barbie is an interesting one. At the time, it certainly seemed iconic. It broke through into the mainstream and became a wider cultural moment. But is anyone still talking about it?
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
And then at number 10, we've got Deadpool Wolverine. And in this case, yeah, I think both characters are iconic. But while they certainly had a boost to their status in 2023, they didn't debut in the 2020s. And obviously they're both based on comics, so that complicates things. So, what can we learn by looking at these box office numbers? Well, first of all, there's a severe lack of original content.
That's bad.
The only non-sequels on here are based on maybe the most well-known video game character of all time, and maybe the most well-known toy of all time. But it also reveals that despite box office numbers, it's very hard to find empirical, data-driven evidence over a character's iconic status and cultural legacy. All of these movies were massive at the time, but 1, 2, or 3 years later, most of them have fallen out of the discourse.
I am Spider-Man.
But being iconic is so much more than just numbers. Going back to that definition, it's about being widely known and acknowledged. Of course, time will tell, and maybe it's a bit unfair to look at films that are so recent because they haven't had that time to marinate. But being iconic is vibes-based, and do any of these characters seem like they'll be iconic in 10 years' time? I don't have the capacity to do a mass survey and see what characters people have and haven't heard of, but what I can do is ask someone who's relatively removed from the fast-paced online discourse, who is a casual moviegoer. Someone who's a good litmus test as to whether or not a character has broken through into the mainstream and isn't just popular across these hyper-individual social media algorithms. My mum. So I sent over some photos of characters and simply asked her to name them. She got the obvious ones like Jack Sparrow, Darth Vader, and Indiana Jones. Ellen Ripley was Alien Ripley, which is close enough, and she was unsure of Jason, but did get him in the end. Then I started testing the waters. She called Benoit Blanc LeBlanc, and to my surprise, she managed to get the name of Jake Sully. But I was a little disappointed she called Oppenheimer the atom bomb guy. She works in a school with young kids, so I thought she'd get this no problem, but no idea on Zootopia. Honora was a no, the whale was a yes. She doubted herself on John Wick, but eventually got it right. What I found was that for the older characters she could name them pretty easily, but for the newer ones she recognised the film, but not necessarily the character. Which is interesting. Why do older characters break through and become iconic in and of themselves, whereas newer ones don't? What are they not doing? To find out, let's take a look at what these older icons have in common. To put it simply, what makes a character iconic? First of all, we've got the design, which we've already touched on. A great design tells us about a character without saying anything. From his looks alone, we know Darth Vader is evil and commanding. From Michael Myers' expressionless mask, we know this is a relatively empty vessel. It can be simple like a dirty vest or a tuxedo and a rose, but it has to be recognisable and fit the character.
You never wanted my friendship.
We've also got performance.
You are without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
Jack Sparrow's design was good, but I'd argue it was Johnny Depp's performance that made the character what it is.
You have heard of me.
It's the same for Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter, and why Heath Ledger's Joker seems to be the most iconic incarnation of that character. Take the performance away, and I can't see these characters being as celebrated as they are. And another factor is the music. When you hear this, you think of Darth Vader. When you hear this, you think of Indiana Jones. It's the same for Jack Sparrow and Harry Potter. If a character is associated with a catchy and recognisable song, it's inevitable they become more memorable. It certainly helped Darth Maul and Flash Gordon. But what modern character has a theme tune that's iconic as any of these? Maybe Avengers, but that was at least 7 years ago. Like design, music acts as a shortcut to a character. But these are all fairly superficial factors. If we want to go deeper, we can look at the context in which the character is presented to us. We can examine their cultural resonance. In an article from 2024, Every Movie Has a Lesson argues that iconic characters tend to reflect the cultural moment they come from. They point to how Bonnie and Clyde and Travis Bickle reflect the disillusionment and turbulence of the late 60s and 70s. We can see the change in mood as we go into the 80s in Rocky Balboa, originating as a working class hero in 1976, before turning into an all-American crusader against communism in the 80s. It's an interesting proposal, and I think reflecting the cultural moment can certainly help a character become more resonant.
Thomas Anderson?
But I don't think it's essential.
Yeah, that's me.
Instead, I'd argue that in order for a character to be iconic, they have to be relatively simple.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted? What have you done with those plans?
Don't hate me for saying this, but Darth Vader is a pretty simple character.
I am altering the deal.
For the sake of argument, I'm going to ignore all the prequel business, because while that certainly added to him, he gained his icon status before that.
Pray I don't alter it any further.
So what do we have? In his first scene, he walks into a room and strangles an unarmed prisoner. He blows up a planet. He's literally on the dark side.
Don't know the power of the dark side.
He's an unambiguously evil character. He very much fits into the archetype of the Dark Lord. It's the same as Sauron and Voldemort.
Harry Potter.
We also have the Chosen One archetype, who goes from nothing to saving the world, fulfilling some kind of prophecy or restoring some ancient power.
You're a wizard, Harry.
And then there's the Wise Sage character. Someone who's typically very old and learned in the power the Chosen One wields.
For 800 years have I trained Jedi.
What I'm trying to get at here is that oftentimes the most iconic characters are the simplest ones. Indiana Jones is quite a straightforward adventurer, the Joker quite a straightforward agent of chaos. Their motives are simple, and their arcs straightforward.
Where's the Italian?
I want to be free of this pain.
Maybe this is why Kylo Ren doesn't have the staying power as Darth Vader, because if you think about it, he's a more complex character.
I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it.
He's constantly torn between the light and the dark, between wielding supreme power and living up to his family name. But Darth Vader, sure, he has his redemption arc at the end, but this isn't super layered. For the most part, he's a straightforward evil guy, and this is why we love him. So are modern characters more complicated now? Is that why they're not iconic? Or do they not have good designs, good performances, great music, or a cultural resonance? I don't think that's it. I think a character today can have all of this, but still not become iconic. Let's take Marty Mauser. There's a great performance, had a banging score and soundtrack, and created a cultural moment with the marketing campaign.
Robert Pattinson. Shwat!
But in 5 years' time, will people still be talking about Marty Mauser?
It's only a matter of time before I'm staring at you from the cover of a Wheaties box.
Even if you have all the markers of an icon, it's much harder for a character to break through and become iconic today. And to prove this, let's have a look at another unconventional way to measure icon status. Basically every iconic character can be found in Fortnite. So I churned through every skin Fortnite has ever done, and there was a lot. Here's what I learned. I looked mainly at the skins that can be generally associated with the 2020s, meaning it belongs to a character or IP that is still active today. I found 20. Out of these, 7 were celebrities. This is musicians and influencers like Sabrina Carpenter, Mr. Beast and Speed, leaving us 13 movie skins. Out of this, 7 were promotional. This is Jared Leto and Tron Ares, a grabber from the Black Phone, characters from the new Superman movie and Stranger Things. This leaves us with 6 non-promotional skins. Art the Clown, Avatar, Godzilla and Kong, Into the Spider-Verse, Dune, Mandalorian. So are these the most iconic characters of the 2020s? Maybe. I do think that Stranger Things and Squid Game, despite being promotional, certainly belong on this list too. So if we add them, it means that Squid Game is the only TV or movie that's completely original and began in the 2020s. So is player 456, Seong Ji-hoon, the most iconic original character of this decade? That doesn't seem right. Again, like the box office test and like the mum test, this isn't scientific or objective in any way. It's a vibes-based test for a vibes-based definition of iconic. But what this does reveal, in a shock to basically no one, is this. Look, you've heard this before. From that top 10 list of highest grossing movies, not a single one isn't a sequel or based on an already existing IP. Hollywood is out of ideas, it's the death of original storytelling, you get the picture. And naturally, with less original stories being told, there's going to be less original characters, and therefore less newly minted iconic characters.
This way, Mario!
And when new characters are introduced into existing IP, they're very rarely as iconic as the originals. Can you tell me a Poe Dameron quote?
That's my jacket.
How well do you remember the plot of Matrix Resurrections?
Sure.
But it's not quite as simple as that, because original films are being made, more than ever before actually. They're just not in the mainstream. You see, when it comes to high-budget tentpole blockbusters, you're absolutely right. But what about films like Marty Supreme, Sinners, Nope, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Substance? These were massive. Everything Everywhere won 7 Oscars, Conan O'Brien took The Substance, Sinners is the most Oscar-nominated movie ever, and Marty Supreme had a goddamn blimp. They were big when they released, but now, not so much. Their moment came and went. Not many people are still talking about Everything Everywhere All at Once. Can you imagine anyone dressing up as Marty Mauser for Halloween in 5 years' time? So yeah, while great original stories are being told, they just don't linger in the culture for as long as something like Star Wars or Indiana Jones. And there's a lot of reasons why. Shorter theatrical windows and the rise of streaming make movies much less of an event. But also, our culture seems to be much faster paced than it was in the past. Just like a TikTok trend, films have their moment and then it's over, resigned to best of the year lists on Letterboxd rather than Halloween costumes and pajamas. And because our culture is so fast paced, things have no staying power anymore. Look at this sharp drop off in searches for The Substance. And this isn't a comment on the film's quality. I think all of the ones I've mentioned are great films, and I can maybe see Sinners being a future classic. But for the most part, they kinda came and went. And a good way of putting this into perspective is by looking at something more and more people seem to be talking about recently. This was the weekend of April 26th, 2019, and it seems for this weekend, almost everyone was united and brought together to watch the final chapter in The Avengers. Listen to that audience reaction. Do you know what also happened that weekend? This. The long night episode of Game of Thrones. And with potentially the exception of Barbenheimer, I think this was the last true pop culture event that basically everyone was tuned into. It was a shared cultural moment that reached almost everyone. And just like it seemed everyone was watching Endgame and Game of Thrones, it seemed like everyone was tuned into The Force Awakens. A whole generation grew up watching Harry Potter, and co-workers gathered around the water cooler to chat about Lost.
I'm one of the survivors of Oceanic Flight 815.
But what have we had since April 2019? A few breakout movies, maybe Stranger Things or Squid Game reached Game of Thrones level, but for the most part, the media we consume has become much more fragmented. Let's look at an example. K-pop Demon Hunters was huge. I've been repeatedly told basically every kid on the face of the planet was watching it. The music video has over 1 billion views. But me, a 24-year-old man with no real interest in K-pop, knows nothing about it. This is the death of the monoculture in action. When I watched Severance, it seemed huge. I saw tons of content about it online and chatted to people in person about it. But I know it's still fairly niche outside of my own internet circles. People inhabit different worlds that seem expansive and universal, but in reality it's just the algorithm making it seem like that.
He's called Dylan G because he's the GOAT. Yes.
The monoculture is dead, replaced by individual social media realities scientifically optimized to get as much interest from each singular person. It's clear the culture has changed, so how a certain character operates as iconic must have changed too, right? What does being iconic look like in the 2020s? And this brings me on to the final one of my unscientific, vibes-based tests. I don't mean memes in the traditional sense, but modern memes, TikTok memes. This is a different kind of iconic to what came before. It's a chronically online, short, superficial, brain-rotted kind of iconic.
Get this party started!
For someone like Darth Vader, his icon status is very much a celebration of his character. People like him and obsess over him because of how he looks, sure, but also because of what he does and how he works within the story of Star Wars.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
But for these TikToks, this isn't really the case. Take the Ryan Gosling memes as an example. These don't solely focus on a single character. We can see Drive, Blade Runner, La La Land. These memes don't celebrate his character's role in their respective story. It's typically just a few select clips that can be easily applied to a specific situation or joke as outlined in the caption. It's operating on a purely aesthetic level. You don't even need to have seen the film. It's the same with Patrick Bateman, Joker, J.K. Simmons in Whiplash, or Jordan Belfort. It's Cliff Booth making macaroni or Thomas Shelby beast mode edits. It's this gif from Breaking Bad, or a kid named Finger. Don't get me wrong, these can be pretty funny, and maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but it's a different way of celebrating the character than in the past.
Well done. You're not supposed to put a fork in the microwave.
You don't even need to have seen Drive or American Psycho or Breaking Bad to understand the purpose of these. They act as short reaction clips, and not much more.
I am the one who cooks microwave meals.
Truly iconic characters in the traditional sense just aren't suited for this kind of landscape. They're made for a different medium, a medium that is increasingly being replaced by something else, something new. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest in your answer. In the past days, or past couple of days, have you spent more time watching content on social media, or watching a movie, or a TV show, or any kind of fictional storytelling? Chances are, social media is on top. I know it is for me. Obviously, this is age dependent and doesn't apply to everyone, but it's hard to deny that with the rise of social media, there's been a significant change in the media we consume, and therefore a change in the characters we follow too.
10 essentials I can't live without. With Mr. Beast.
In the past, we had celebrities and reality TV, but now we have millions of influencers that can produce content more regularly and reach audiences much quicker than traditional media. They don't come and go like Barbenheimer or Everything Everywhere All at Once because they can keep releasing content. Content that's fully optimized to keep your attention and reach as many people as possible. Instead of watching Darth Vader, kids are watching Mr. Beast.
We're going on some of the most expensive dates in the world.
Maybe there's no iconic movie characters anymore because that space has been taken up by influencers and YouTubers. Mr. Beast can release a video a week that will be viewed by hundreds of millions of people. TV shows can barely release a season every 2 years. In the time it takes for the hype of a movie to die down, Mr. Beast has already made another video. And he doesn't need a recognizable design, an impressive performance, or a catchy theme song, because he just plays the algorithm.
In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can get access to all of my YouTube secrets.
The entire media landscape is basically unrecognizable as to how it was in the past, so naturally the way characters resonate with audiences has changed too. It's sad, but it's true. Cinema can't keep up with social media. There's a reason almost half of the 2020's Fortnite skins are celebrities and influencers. So, maybe the most iconic characters of the 2020s aren't from movies or TV shows at all, but are from YouTube or TikTok. Is IShowSpeed the new Indiana Jones, going to distant lands not in search of treasure, but in search of content? Is Mr. Beast the new Darth Vader, not using the Force to dominate the galaxy, but giving a life-changing amount of money to whoever can spend the longest chained to their ex-boyfriend? Is Sabrina Carpenter the new Ellen Ripley? Is Archer Green the new Doc Brown? Is Kim Kardashian the new Don Corleone? Content reigns supreme. The monoculture is dead. In the 2020s, iconic characters are whatever influencers, creators, or celebrities are fed to you by the algorithm.